Tonight, we're sitting down for an exclusive interview with the head of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro.
I believe we got every bit of value possible out of this river and out of this asset and out of the relationship.
The next 50 years with Quebec, why Jennifer Williams says the new Churchill deal is nothing like the last.
Metrobus is experiencing record growth. We're on track for 5.2 million rides in 2024.
A jolt for Metrobus, new money today for a more environmentally friendly fleet.
He's our, I don't want to say words to embarrass him, but he's our hero.
There was a little boy who finally saw someone like him.
I was very overwhelmed and excited because he was like me.
He can still remember the moment he met his family, and tonight we're catching up with the Facies 7 years later.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. NL Hydro CEO Jennifer Williams believes the province has squeezed all the value possible out of the Churchill Falls deal. The new tentative agreement sees Quebec pay more for power from the Upper Churchill, but that means this province does too. Heather Gillis reports.
I believe we got every bit of value possible.
Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro CEO Jennifer Williams says there were times she thought the new Churchill Falls deal wouldn't get done. She says negotiations with Quebec were difficult and detailed. But now that the ink is dry on the tentative agreement, she's optimistic.
I really do believe that getting definitive agreements is possible.
It's not expected to be finalized until April 2026, but the tentative agreement would mean $17 billion for this province between now and 2041. An average of $1 billion a year for 17 years. Quebec will pay 30 times what it's currently paying, an average of 5.9 cents per kilowatt hour. But that price changes over time.
So in 2025, we expect it to be about 1.6 cents a kilowatt hour, so about 8 times current. In about 10 years on, it'll be almost 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. 10 years after that, about 9 cents a kilowatt hour. It continues to increase. I think at the end of the contract, it's forecast to be about 37 cents a kilowatt hour.
With Quebec paying more for power, it means this province will too. Williams says people won't see a change in their power bills on the island.
That is a totally separate system. And as it relates to power bills for people in Labrador, the government has come out already and said that power bills will not change for residential customers.
Williams says they struck a 50-year deal. Anything shorter wouldn't have made sense to Quebec, considering under the current deal, they're getting nearly free power for the next 17 years.
I fundamentally believe that this is a good deal for both us and for Quebec. It has to be in order for it to proceed.
She says the price of power will be linked to a number of different indicators to make it fair in the future and won't be locked in to a fixed price like before.
Or that the pricing principles that we're using is meant to capture fairness over the term of the contract. That didn't exist in the first one. So as a most fundamental, we have worked into the contract the lessons of the past.
Williams says she felt the weight of trying to get the deal right. And when it comes to independent oversight of the contract and the possible new power projects by the PUB, Williams says she doesn't know if they have the expertise to assess it. She says Hydro brought in experts that were independent for input into the agreements. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
The Liberal MP for St. John's East is standing by the Prime Minister. It's been a tumultuous week for Justin Trudeau, with growing calls for his resignation after Chrystia Freeland quit his cabinet on Monday. Joanne Thompson says ahead of Donald Trump's presidency, Canada needs to stay united.
We need to be focused on what's right for Canada in terms of how we deal with what potentially can happen around tariffs and other disruptions. We need experience in our government in Canada, and this is not the time for us to fracture. So I very much support we need to have a unified caucus. We need to have experience in the Prime Minister's office, and yes, I support the Prime Minister staying on.
Well, there was an electrifying announcement at St. John City Hall today. Metrobus is getting about $50 million from the federal, provincial, and municipal governments for electric and hybrid buses. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
Mayor Danny Breen says that when federal MPs and provincial ministers show up at City Hall, they usually have checks. And today, he was right.
The federal government is investing over $22.8 million under the public transit system of investing in Canada infrastructure programs to support the purchase of 8 additional hybrid buses, 9 zero-emission buses.
This isn't the first boost to buses. 8 hybrids have been announced before, and 3 of those are already on the road. It will be years before they're all here, but with today's announcement, Metrobus will eventually have 25 buses that use electricity, including 9 that are fully electric.
The hybrid buses are expected to improve fuel efficiency by up to 30% compared to diesel buses. The 9 battery electric buses will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 720,000 tons and generate operating savings of $8.8 million for Metrobus over their 18-year life cycle.
The new buses will replace old diesel buses as they're retired, but city officials say it will work out to 2 extra buses, bringing the total Metrobus fleet to 62 vehicles. Breen says demand for public transportation is growing too.
Metrobus is experiencing record growth. We're on track for 5.2 million rides in 2024, which is approximately a 58% increase over 2019.
Some of the money announced today will also be used for infrastructure, like charging stations to support the new buses. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's a common joke, especially during the holidays, that you can't choose your family, but the Facies of Paradise did get to choose, and it seems fate was on their side. It's a story that stayed with me over the years, and this update is so heartwarming it may stick with you too. 7 years ago, I visited the Facie family. Doug and Leslie adopted Kirill from Kazakhstan, a little boy born with one hand who some thought may never find a home of his own. But for the Facies, it was love at first sight. As fate would have it, Doug's father, Chris, was also born without his right hand. So for this family, there was no hesitation. Kirill belonged from the very beginning. So how are they doing today? Well, the last time we saw Kirill, he was just 6 years old, full of energy and love for his family. And that's still the same today, only now he's a teenager. So it's been 7 years since we've seen each other, and you've certainly grown up. What do you remember of that time?
I remember most of it because my friends keep watching the video. I remember putting up the ornaments on the tree, saving the best for last. I remember hugging my parents, having no clue what was going on while they were talking. I just had a fun time, not knowing what was going on, and they're just talking about me.
And now that you're a bit older, what do you remember about your adoption?
I remember the first time I saw my parents. I was really excited, and I told all the other kids that my parents don't touch them. I remember also one time my parents were at the door. The door opened, and I saw my mom, and I just went straight into her arms and gave her a big hug. And that's when they knew I was theirs.
How would you sum up the past 7 years?
Big learning curve. Different learning how to be a parent bringing a 4-year-old in than as opposed to an infant. Teaching Kirill normal life skills and then also learning a second language. Introducing him to all the different activities he's wanted to try over the years. So he's been in swimming lessons. He's done, what else has he done? Recreational curling. He's been in choir. He's now currently in trampoline as a competitive athlete, which he's loving. Getting him through school. So he's a really good student. I gotta say, he's no trouble to sit down and study when it's test time and things like that. And he knows he has to prepare, and he's developing very good work habits. So he's in late French immersion now, which is wonderful. So I guess technically he doesn't speak as Russian anymore, but he's on his 3rd language. So that's always impressive when you tell people.
He's a teenager now.
He is a teenager. Sometimes it comes out, but most of the time, no, he's our, I don't want to say words to embarrass him, but he's our Carol.
Carol does not have a handicap. Carol has one hand. There's an awful lot of children who have a lot more problems than he does. And, you know, when I first saw a hand, I stuck my hand out and he took it. One of Douglas' friends had taken the picture. And it was a little boy who finally saw someone like him.
Why do you think so many people were interested and so many people who saw that felt it so deeply?
With so many things going on in the world that's bad, it was an absolute good news story. And I've said to many people who I've shown or mentioned to look at the video on that, is if you don't get a tingle up your back to see a little boy that nobody wanted, found a couple who wanted a little boy. The rest doesn't matter.
For you, Carol, when you first met your grandfather, what did you think?
I was also like, oh, he's just like me, so he can understand some stuff, and he can talk me through if I'm ever struggling with stuff, and he'll be a great benefit. And I also loved him. I still love him.
The thing that struck me with one of my grandchildren, Charlotte, I believe it was, I said to you know, Carol only has one hand. And her answer as an 8-year-old, I guess, was, no, she does. No, he doesn't, Gramp. He's like you.
It sounds like you fell in love with him right away.
I did.
Do you know why?
I was just happy to have a home, have a family, and just overly excited about all that. And it was a thrill.
There was stories of, you know, he was up for adoption there and nobody was smart enough to take him. And, you know, if we hadn't been in the picture, he would have aged out of the child system, would have been in with teenagers and whatnot, you know, where he could have been. So, you know, the timing worked out for all of us, and here he is. And you know, no matter what anyone says, I've been told many times that he's the lucky one. No, we're the lucky ones.
Have you ever thought about what life would have been like for Carol if you all hadn't come together and found each other?
I have a hard time going there. No child should have to go through what he did.
Carol and I have this back and forth every single day.
Oh, they do, dear God. We're not
And
gonna start this again, are we?
it's I love you more. No, I love you more. No, stop it. I do. And it goes back and forth all the time. And then we each have days of the week, so it's all traded out. So
I'm not even included, so neither one love me.
he gets Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I get Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And then he tries to negotiate Sunday should be a half day and split, so it's balanced. And then I will sit there and use the excuse on him. Well, honey, we went over and got you. We went over and got you. We brought you back, and it was big like that. And then he looks at you.
I knew you get the extra day.
But then he looks at you. He goes, "I didn't have love for 4 years," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I could see because how do I argue with that one?
I was in the orphanage for 4 years, never really having love. And then my parents came, found me, saw the picture, knew it was love at first sight, went to come and adopt me. I was confused, but then overall, afterwards, I got less confused and way more happy from what my life could become now, knowing that I did find love and I could be a typical normal teenager now.
And every organization he's been involved with, every one of them has embraced him, put any accommodations in necessary, and anywhere where he didn't need accommodations, he was like every other kid. Mm-hmm. And I think that's my favorite part about him being in trampoline now, is he really is the same. There's nothing there to change. He's doing the same competitive program as everybody else. He's competing against every other athlete with 2 hands, and he's overcompensated for balance and twisting and everything else, and he's judged in the same capacity as everyone else, and it's wonderful. His coach is fabulous over there, the team is fabulous over there, and yeah, everybody's on Team Carol.
We've got a couple of systems to get through over the next couple of days, but the one on Saturday already prompting a special weather statement and some winter storm watches for parts of the province. I'll get into all the details coming up a little later.
Look at that one over there.
Is this good?
Yeah, a little bit more. That felt good.
Therapeutic almost.
There's a wrestling ring down there. What's that about?
This is wild.
Well, it was a dramatic and dangerous scene along the Bay d'Espoir Highway to rescue a driver trapped inside a tractor trailer after it went into the northwest Gander River. We have this up-close perspective thanks to the Exploits Search and Rescue Team. Police, alongside fire crews from Grand Falls, Windsor, Bishops Falls, and Milltown, rushed to respond yesterday morning, shortly after 8 o'clock. Despite the sunny conditions, the road was extremely slippery along this stretch, and water levels in the river were high. The trailer broke through the metal railings before landing in the water below. RCMP say the driver sustained a serious leg injury. He was also exposed to the elements for a number of hours, but is expected to make a full recovery. Scammers are impersonating police, and the RCMP doesn't want people to fall for it. According to police, fraudsters are posing as officers in a new phone scam. The person on the line names a real relative, says they're in jail and in need of bail money. Police say the scam is happening locally, and it wants to remind people that RCMP will never ask a person for money or anything. Any potential victims are asked to call their local detachment. For years, the Manuels River Interpretation Center has operated as a nonprofit, but in the new year, Conception Bay South will be taking ownership. Here Now's Julia Israel has more on what the town has in store.
Even prior to the pandemic, the Manuels River Interpretation Center had been struggling.
Manuels River Community Inc. has been experiencing financial challenges really since probably before COVID, but COVID really sort of made things more difficult. It just felt like the best option for Manuels River to partner with the town.
A focal point here in CBS, the Interpretation Center is dedicated to educational programming and protecting the environment.
And our trails in Conception Bay South are synonymous with us in outdoor living and healthy living. And it's expensive to operate a building like that.
The board is confident that the new owners will keep the same spirit alive.
Basically, they've committed to preserving, stewarding, and exhibiting, the fossil collection that's there. So that's going to continue. And the center will certainly be very well connected to the community and be a community center of some sort.
The specifics are still being worked out, but council sees big potential and big opportunity here.
The Manuels River Interpretation Center has been iconic here in the community. One of the things that residents have been asking for is indoor community space, and it was identified in our Recreation Cultural Master Plan. So we see this as a huge opportunity for the community and the residents.
It's a tremendous building. It has a theater, it has a kitchen space, it is an absolute great destination for weddings and receptions and so forth, and we want to continue with that.
Why do you love the trail so much?
It's peaceful, the people are very friendly when you're walking the trails, and I love the river.
That 4.5 kilometers of trail extends in both directions, and this resident hopes the town can maintain what the Manuels Interpretation Center has created.
It's just fresh air, you get out the wind when you get down here in Manuel, so it's pretty good. Just keep them, as they are, and probably improve a little bit, where you can, but other than that, just keep status quo.
A transition team has put the call out, asking for community input on how residents want to see the space used. Julia Israel, CBC News, Conception Bay South.
They were just so happy to be able to actually go out into a store and be able to shop for their loved ones for Christmas.
Yeah, for people with anxiety, holiday shopping can be an overwhelming experience, a dreaded task, but one West Coast store is helping them out with a gentle alternative to shopping, and the owner says it's making all the difference. Ashley's here with a look at the weather, and it's getting closer and closer to Christmas. A lot of people are going to be heading out on the weekend and tomorrow shopping. What's it going to be like?
Yeah, well, the weekend not so great, but we do have some weather to get through before we even get there. And we're already starting to see that rain here in the east as well. We've been seeing snow for a good chunk of the west coast of the island, particularly in the higher elevations. Lower elevations are mainly seeing rain from this, but overall, these were the daytime highs today, anywhere from about 2 to 10 degrees. Very different depending on where you were. And up across Labrador, temperatures in the minus single digits towards the coast, minus double digits to the west. Now, taking a look at what's going on. So this area of low pressure is going to continue to track further east as we head through tonight, bringing some of that rain with it. That rain snow line pretty much around Grand Falls, Windsor area, just to the west of that. Things, especially in the higher elevations, like I said, are falling as snow. But that is going to taper off as we head through tonight. Already starting to see that happen. Mainly the rain will be very quick. It'll move through and then it'll end as we head through the next couple of hours. Now, the west coast still looking at some snow continuing. Same thing for the northern peninsula, southeastern Labrador. We'll see that snow continue through at least the first part of the night and into the overnight as well. Eventually, we will see things clear out as we head towards the first part of tomorrow morning. It actually looks, tomorrow, the first part of the day anyway, looks pretty decent. The other thing you'll note is the winds have picked up a little bit. 60 to 80 kilometer per hour winds expected to continue for the next couple of hours. Eventually, once we get towards midnight, the winds will start to ease a little bit, at least for eastern areas of the island. And then by the time we get into tomorrow morning, those winds will dramatically drop off through the morning. Overall, temperatures are going to continue to climb for the next couple of hours, and then they'll drop in behind that front. Overall, we should dip back down to about 0 degrees in St. John's, otherwise minus single digits for the rest of the island, except the northern peninsula, where you're going to hang out in around the minus 10 area there. And then up across Labrador, pretty chilly as well, minus double digits, minus 24 in Lab City with some breezy winds, especially towards the coast. But overall, a fairly quiet night. Still have about another couple of centimeters to fall. Long-range mountains may see a little bit more than that, closer to 10 to 15 centimeters by the time that is all said and done. But like I said, tomorrow looking pretty decent. Higher elevations likely still see a few flurries continuing, but clouds for the most part will be on the increase tomorrow. We'll likely see a few peaks of sun in the mix as well. It will be much colder tomorrow in behind that front. Up across Labrador, fairly quiet as well, just some varying levels of cloud cover through the day. But as we head through the night and into the first part of Saturday, our next weather maker moves in. And that's the one that's prompting that special weather statement, as well as a winter storm watch for the northern peninsula and southeastern portions of Labrador. At this point, by Saturday morning, there's a chance that the Avalon and the Burin Peninsula will see this briefly start as some snow, maybe some ice pellets, and then quickly change over to rain as that line will head towards central areas of the province. But I will definitely get into more of those details a little later. Overall, tomorrow we should be hovering somewhere between 0 and about +1 for the Avalon. So nice day. Winds will shift from northwesterlies to easterlies. Not overly impressive, about 20 kilometers per hour. But we are looking at single digits for minus single digits for central areas and the west coast of the province. The island up across Labrador, minus single digits for southeastern portions of the Big Land. But take a look at this beautiful sunshine, albeit cold, as we sit under a little bit of a ridge of high pressure. Minus 12 for Nain. Happy Valley Goose Bay will sit around minus 13, and Lab City around minus 19. I'll have your long-range forecast coming up a little later.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Well, holiday shopping can be stressful for anyone, but for people with anxiety, chaotic crowds and loud music can be especially hard. And that's why one store on the West Coast is making a special offer to shop in peace and quiet.
Oh my gosh, I was just lying in bed one day and I said to my husband, maybe I should offer a service for people who suffer from anxiety in our community to book a special time to come in and shop. And he said, sure, why not? Let's do it. And so when I posted it, I never thought in a million years it would take off the way that it did. And it was just incredible. A lot of men and women have privately reached out to come after hours and just do some quiet time shopping. And it was just a really big eye-opener as to what a lot of people deal with this issue out in our society. I know what it's like to have anxiety, so the crowds of people and just, people pushing you out of the way and just, not being very friendly this time of year when it's supposed to be a friendly time of year can give you anxiety going out, not knowing what you're going to face out in the stores. So just for my own personal experience, I thought it would be nice to make some quiet time for people that really, really need it. I think as a private business owner, a small business owner, I'm free to do those types of things. I know a lot of other businesses probably don't have the staff and don't have the means to be able to do that. So, it would be nice in a perfect world that everybody offered it, but I also understand that not all small businesses can do that. We're all struggling to stay afloat in this hard economy right now, but I know that I'm very blessed to be able to do it right now because, I have enough staff to cover what we need. I've had tons of thank yous and appreciation, and we had a few people that cried. They were just so happy to be able to actually go out into a store and be able to shop for their loved ones for Christmas and not have to deal with busting music and crowds of people and long lineups and just the quietness alone. They were just so grateful and happy, and it was overwhelming, the response. It was really a huge, like I said, eye-opener as what's going on in our communities.
That hangover that we've had for decades is going to change. And so, and that has affected so many of us for so long, that is a massive, massive change.
NL Hydro head Jennifer Williams sits down with Heather Gillis for an in-depth interview about the future of the Churchill Falls deal.
It's been a week since this province announced a new power deal with Quebec, rewriting the 1969 Churchill Falls contract and announcing mega projects to build more power along the Churchill River. Jennifer Williams is the CEO of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, joining us now. Jennifer, thanks for being with us.
Happy to be here.
So first thing I think a lot of people really want to know is, what does this mean for them? What does this mean for their power bills? Will they see any increase because of these deals?
Certainly what it means for the people of the province 25 and up is a very different vision of what this province has, a different relationship with the Churchill River and the assets in Labrador. So that hangover that we've had for decades is going to change. And so that has affected so many of us for so long. That is a massive, massive change. How that affects everyone directly, I think it will be determined over time. But just that will be felt. I can feel it now. I think people have been feeling it since the announcement last week. So that is absolutely going to change for every single person. As it relates to the power bills, with regards to island ratepayers, there really won't be any impact there. That is a totally separate system. And as it relates to power bills for people in Labrador, the government has come out already and said that power bills will not change for residential customers as a result of this deal. And for larger commercial customers, that will be revisited over time, and I'm sure we'll want to remain competitive and fair with those larger customers in Labrador.
A big part of this announcement, $17 billion over the next 17 years. It means Hydro-Quebec is going to pay 5.9 cents per kilowatt hour, up from 0.2. That's 30 times more, but it won't be 5.9 cents right away. Can you break that down? Because it won't necessarily be $1 billion in the first year after this MOU is turned into a contract and an agreement.
Right, and that's a really important point, is that we have a very detailed, many months, multiple years effort gone into this MOU. Folks should not underestimate the detail and the commitment in that MOU, as short as it may appear to be. And we are going to work really hard with Quebec now, and we've got that in the MOU to get the definitive agreements done by April. But what the price per kilowatt hour that you can try to derive out of that MOU is, and we would say 5.9, because that's essentially what the forecast payments are meant to capture over the life of the contract. But in practicality, what that would mean in year one, so in 2025, we expect it to be about 1.6 cents a kilowatt hour, so about 8 times current. In about 10 years on, it'll be almost 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. 10 years after that, about 9 cents a kilowatt hour. It continues to increase. I think at the end of the contract, it's forecast to be about 37 cents a kilowatt hour. So it will continue to climb over time. And another really important point is, because people will say, well, how does that compare to my bill? Your bill that you have has 3 components really to it. There's the generation component, there's the big transmission line component, and the distribution component. This really is just the generation component. So if you're going to try to compare your bill to 1.2 cents or 1.6 cents or 5.9 cents, whatever that number is, it's only the generation component.
And because Quebec will be paying more, it also means that we may be paying more. Can you explain that to people?
Sure. So the one of my team members says, the sad silver lining in this deal from 1969 was that Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro purchased power from CFLCO in the same way that Hydro-Quebec purchased from CFLCO at the same 0.2 cent rate. So Labrador customers have been receiving the effect of that over time. So they have had the benefit of the generation component of their bill being very, very low, very different than what it is for folks on the island.
Okay, and we've been talking about mega projects as well. We've got the expansion of Churchill Falls,
Right.
We've got the upgrades to Churchill Falls, a brand new project, Gull Island on the Churchill River, along with transmission. I know there are some aggressive timelines when it comes to getting wanting to get shovels in the ground.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about when work should start on these projects, or could start on these projects?
Well, between Hydro-Quebec and us, we're going to be working on a lot of engineering work even in the coming months, and as we're trying to sign the definitive agreements, so it can inform those definitive agreements. So I think we're hoping to get, say, Gull Island started definitely before the late 2019 2020s, let's say 2019s, 2020s. And the also the upgrades, like just changing those units out with more modern equipment, we'll see that start within a few years as well.
When you want to get this work done so quickly, the MOU to be finalized April 2026, when we have timelines that are so close, is there any concern about maybe missing dotting an I or crossing a T? What's the risk of these tight timelines?
So with regards to the MOU that we have completed, we made sure that we were prudent in gaining additional help and resources as required to ensure that we weren't missing an I on missing a dot on an I or crossing a T. So we will continue to do that. But it does mean that we do have to increase our resources to do this, because we're taking a small but very detailed MOU and turning it into long-term contracts. So we will make sure that we have all of the right resources possible, and we're already started that planning work of how we're going to take this on.
The length of the contract, 50 years between 2025 and 2075, which it's a year a lot of people can't really even wrap their head around right now. Why are these contracts so long?
I really like the example, again, one of our team members said, well, what about if you do like a 25-year deal? And if you put yourself in Hydro-Quebec's position, so if we were to do a 25-year deal, that would be 8 years longer than what they currently are contracted for. Like, why would they do that? It doesn't make any sense. So if you think about the Upper Churchill project, and so the existing PPA, that was scheduled to expire in 2041. So they needed some value to demonstrate to people in Quebec that this makes sense for them to break 17 years of almost free power and to sign back up again. So they're basically, getting, 2.5 or 3.5 decades more than what they would. So it wouldn't quite make sense to go with a much shorter contract period for a counterparty who was essentially giving up quite a lucrative deal.
The Hydro-Quebec CEO also saying, going in alone, new power generation would be about 16 cents per kilowatt hour. According to the news release from last week, it says that new power generation obviously will be based on the cost of construction and operation. Estimated right now to be about 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Other than that, what's in this deal for Quebec? Why do they want to come to this province, take on the risk of Gull Island and work with us?
Right. I think practically, when we throw away the very difficult history of the deal, we do have a very good working relationship. It's an incredible resource. It has an existing environmental assessment. It has a release. We have an existing impact and benefits agreement with our partner, Innu Nation. It is Gull Island in particular, is a very large project, the last best one in North America. So it is a very important project to Quebec. It does sync well with their existing system. So I think that's exactly why they need to do this, is they have a lot of power needs coming, with electrification, the transportation sector. They're leading the country in uptake of electric vehicles. So they need the power really badly. So that is exactly why, in my view, I'm not speaking for Hydro-Quebec CEO, but they need the power pretty bad, and that is why they're willing to do this.
You just mentioned your relationship with Hydro-Quebec, and it looks like from watching the announcement that the relationship between Premier Fury and Premier Legault is quite cozy, which is a big departure from the relationships of premiers of Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec from the past. And they've even gone as far as calling each other friends. But from your perspective, from the inside, when these negotiations have been happening over the last number of years, how would you characterize all of that work that happened in the background quietly that people didn't really know a lot about?
Right. Well, I'm glad it was quiet, because that's the whole point. We wanted to make sure that we were examining what the absolute best opportunities were for us and being responsive to Quebec. If they said, well, this is what's needed for us, it was important for us to do that quietly. And because if you're doing any of this in public, you harm your position. As we worked through what these opportunities looked like, these are difficult negotiations, like very difficult negotiations. There was times that I said, I don't know if we're going to get through this. And then other times like, no, I have hope again that this is going to happen. So I would think, because we've been through this incredibly difficult and detailed period with leadership in Quebec, I think we're stronger than we could ever have been. I really do believe that getting definitive agreements is possible.
Well, the conversation doesn't end there. Tomorrow on Here and Now, Heather talks with Jennifer Williams about the risks involved in this new deal, also the weight, the stress, and the scrutiny involved in securing it, and why Williams found that announcement exactly 1 week ago so emotional. Hope you can tune in for part 2. This week, the loonie dipped below 70 cents US for the first time since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. It comes amid Donald Trump's tariff threats and turmoil in the Trudeau government. Anissa Derry looks at what a weaker dollar means for our economy and our wallets.
Traveling Canadians say a dollar worth 69 cents US isn't nice.
Just sucks. It's become horrible the past year.
Killing us. And it's just going down, 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 down.
I do remember one time it was at par, but that was a while ago.
That was more than a decade ago. These days,
well, the dollar is definitely on a tailspin.
Experts say it's about where to expect growth.
It always comes down to the economy. That is the number one biggest driving force of how the dollar moves. So if the expectation is that the US economy and GDP will do better than Canada, money and investment will move there.
And tariff threats from Donald Trump may keep dragging down Canada's dollar.
I actually am worried or concerned, I should say, that it is going a bit weaker yet until we get, some relief on the tariff front, or, some better economic news to help support the currency.
After the Federal Reserve cut interest rates in the U.S., Canada's dollar fell even more. A low Canadian dollar can make imports more expensive. Think fruits and vegetables from outside Canada. Though things sold or exported in U.S. dollars can benefit. And for tourism, visitors may get more bang for their U.S. buck.
Those that have U.S. dollars, because this is basically almost free money for them in terms of the increased margin.
Definitely something some Americans notice.
It's great. Clothes, Aritzhia's 30% off. It's really good.
As for where the Canadian dollar goes next, there are forecasts it could drop even more to its lowest level in nearly a decade. Anissa Derry, CBC News, Calgary.
clear out quite.
The miners are family, and they have to take care of each other.
It's truly an honor as a Newfoundlander to be able to go out there and bring back a representation of all the Newfoundlanders that weren't able to come back.
Love the world around you because it does shimmer with the impossible sometimes made possible.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane Adey, host of Land and Sea. Coming up this Sunday, a Land and Sea festive classic. What would Christmas be without the Mummer Show?
Mark, what's the noise out by the porch door? Granny, 'tis mummers, there's 20 or more. Her old withered face brightens up with a grin. Any mummers, nice mummers, loud in. Come in, lovely mummers, don't bother the snow. We can wipe up the water, sure, after you go. Sit if you can, or on some mummer's knee. Let's see if we know who you be. There's big ones and small ones and tall ones and thin. Boys dressed as women and girls dressed as men. Humps on their backs and mitts on their feet. My blessed, we'll die with the heat. There's only one there that I think that I know. That tall fella standing o'er alongside the stove. He's shaking his fist for to make me not tell. Must be Willie from out on the hill. Now that one's a stranger, if there ever was one, with his underwear stuffed and his trapdoor undone. Is he wearing his mother's big 42 bra? I knows, but I'm not going to say.
So that's our Land and Sea festive classic, The Mummer Show, coming up this Sunday at 11:30. That's 11 o'clock in most of Labrador. And if you happen to miss it on television, you can always watch it online. Go to CBC Gem or go to CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube channel. So enjoy The Mummer Show and have a very Merry Christmas.
Okay, time for a look at the long-range forecast, and a messy Saturday coming for a lot of people.
Yeah, unfortunately, big travel day this weekend. I've had lots of people ask me what they should do. It's a good idea. If you have to travel across the province, just don't on Saturday.
Really?
Just
Okay.
wait it out.
Stay home.
Yeah, stay
If you
home.
can.
Wait it out until we can get into Sunday. Let's take a look at what's going to happen through the afternoon. So as we head through the night into Saturday morning, we will see things start. By the time we get really, most of the island should be seeing some sort of weather by Saturday morning. This will start briefly as some ice pellets, maybe a little bit of light snow for the Avalon, then quickly change over to rain. Most of the West Coast, Northern Peninsula will be seeing this fall as snow, again, for the first part of the day. Watch that pink line, though. That's where we could see some significant ice, so either rain, freezing rain or some ice pellets in the mixture through Saturday morning and into the afternoon through central parts of the Green Bay, White Bay area. I would not be surprised if we do see some freezing rain warning issued with this. In behind that, though, temperatures are going to warm up quite dramatically on Saturday. So generally looking at the Northern Peninsula staying in the snow. Same thing for southeastern Labrador, which is why we're currently under a winter storm watch. Winds will be breezy with this one as well. But take a look at these temperatures. Anywhere from 10 to 12 degrees as the daytime high, and you can see temperatures for the Northern Peninsula, West Coast staying around the 0 degree mark, which is why you'll either see freezing rain or that snow continue. And then winds, or rather temperatures for southeastern Labrador will be sitting into the minus single digits, the rest of Labrador into the minus teens. So the winds are going to ramp up, like I said. We could be talking about 80 to 100 or even more kilometers per hour through the afternoon on Saturday, mainly east, Northern Peninsula, southeastern portions of Labrador. And then as we head into the evening hours, that will continue. And eventually by Sunday morning, we'll see those winds taper off a little bit. Now, into our Sunday, that snow will continue for Labrador, for the coast anyway. Otherwise, things will clear out quite nicely, minus single digits either hovering around the 1 degree mark further east. Long range forecast showing temperatures dipping back into the minus single digits as we head towards Christmas. Unfortunately, it does look like it will be a not a white Christmas. And then for central Newfoundland, minus single digits. Western Newfoundland, we are looking at the potential for some snow as well. And then up across Labrador, overall cold but clear as we head into the beginning of next week. Our weather photo of the day in Chance Cove yesterday. A lovely shot of a beautiful rainbow there. Thank you for that photo. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful shot. Thank you so much, Ashley. And that's it for us. I'll be off tomorrow and next week, so I hope you all enjoy the holidays. The CBC's Jessica Singer will be here behind the desk tomorrow night, so I hope you can tune in for that. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.